Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw. I'm here in Manchester, England, and I'm here with Paull Tickner, our resident Britain insider. And we've just finished a tour of York, Liverpool, and Manchester. And we're going to talk a little bit about something else here. This is actually going to be the 100th column that Paull writes for us. He's celebrating that. And we're going to talk a little bit about what he's been trying to do with those columns and more. And this is the Britain Insider column, of course, on Insider Travel Report. First of all, thank you very much for writing these fascinating columns over the years. We've been working together for a number of years, and then when we started Insider Travel Report, you were one of the first, if not the first, to come on board as a columnist, and you've been religiously giving us a column almost every week in the last 2 years that we've been doing it, and I hope you'll continue. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about what you've been trying to do with these columns. And I think you said there are sort of 3 points that you've been really trying to get over to the travel advisors, right?
Correct, yes. The 3 short headings, in a sense, are inspire, inform and inspire, travel less, see more, and add value to tours, value added.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the first one, inform and inspire. What have you been trying to do there?
There's an awful lot of bright ideas which keep crawling out from the undergrowth here in the United Kingdom, and sometimes they just don't make it to the coalface as quickly or as well informed as they are. And so I've really been focusing very much on digging around, mostly in England, some in Wales, a little bit in Scotland, but really trying to identify what is actually developing at the grassroots, and to help travel agents to make some sense of it. So it's all very well to say, well, we can do this and we can do that, but the travel agent needs to be helped in the sense of where the product could go, how it can be matched to Anglophile clients who really want to get out into the countryside and see what they define and what we might define as the real England. And also to take it a stage further so that they can see that some of the things that we're talking about can actually match the aspirations of small groups, niche markets which are on their doorsteps, whether to do with gardens, literary Britain, performing arts or whatever. It's really giving them the ammunition, if you like, to be able to go to people and say, this is what we could do. And these are essentially all conversation starting ideas, because if they find their target correctly, and they suggest these are the sorts of things that could go into an itinerary, what will happen is that the clients that they're talking to will say, well, that sounds fine, but we'd actually like to add this or add that. So the conversation then develops and turns into something which actually matches their interests and their expectations.
Right. And then the other part of it is you have a concept of travel less, see more, meaning you're really basing yourself in certain cities and certain areas. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, this again is, I think, for clients who've been to Britain a few times before, it's not the kind of thing that first, second and third timers want to do, because they've got a long wish list starting with an in-depth look at London and then hitting the honeypot destinations, Salisbury, Bath, Chester and the rest. But there are plenty of other customers out there who want to see something else and do something else. And I've had a lot of conversations with people who are thankful for the idea of being able to hit Heathrow and to be able to turn against the traffic and head out into the countryside and spend 3 or 4 days somewhere like the Cotswolds, for example, which I happen to know rather well because I lived there for a few years, and to be able to park their jet lag in a nice country house hotel, to be able to do things which match their interests, whether it's gardens, demonstrations of falconry, costumed interpreters at the Shakespeare houses, things that bring history to life, or just merely saying, well, that was a jolly good day, now where's a nice pub, because we'd like to go and spend an evening rubbing shoulders.
Or a nice place for a tea.
Oh, well, absolutely. Cozy tea rooms, ancient pubs, it's all out there. And that seems to me a much better alternative than sitting in the mobile car park heading into London, only to find your rooms aren't ready until 2 o'clock anyway. So if jet lag is parked in the countryside, and I quote the Cotswolds principles, as I say, because it's a huge area, access through Oxford, to the north you have Stratford-upon-Avon, to the south you have Bath. So you've got a big area to work, well, big area by British standards, a big area to work on, which is packed with experiences which most people would thoroughly enjoy. And then on the final day, with jet lag parked, they can get into the train, or the driver guide can take them then to London, and hey presto, 2 o'clock, rooms are ready, you can check in, and you're ready to deal with London at full revs.
Yeah, or the alternative is don't go to Heathrow at all, go to Manchester, and you really are going to travel less and see more if you use either Manchester or Liverpool or maybe even York as a hub, right?
Correct. I've actually put a quote together for somebody who, it's only 4 people, only 4, they're very nice 4 people, who are flying into Manchester, and whether they do the 10-minute check, clear customs and immigration in 10 minutes as you did, I don't know. But besides that, if it's 30 or 40 minutes, within 45 minutes of that, they're going to be having breakfast at the Grosvenor Hotel in Chester, a 5-star hotel, and waiting for them on the doorstep outside will be a Roman centurion in full military regalia, ready to take them on a walking tour of the city. Now, that will all be concluded by about 10:30 in the morning. If they've arrived in Heathrow, they'll probably be sitting in the traffic, still going to, I exaggerate, I know, but it's those sorts of qualities of experience which I think are out there, and it's my job really to help to identify them and to interpret them for travel advisors who then know exactly how to use them.
Well, or you can do what I do is within, I think, a half an hour of meeting you, we were in Wedgwood, right?
Yep, that's right, and met by somebody who then took us on a very nice tour, which was excellent.
Yeah, and so it did a lot of sightseeing before, and by the time we got to our hotel, it was definitely ready for check-in, right?
Yeah, we were already prepared. So it's, as I say, first, second, and third timers have a different agenda, and that has to be addressed and satisfied, and it will be. But for other more discerning clients who've been to Britain a few times before, there are better ways of doing things.
Yeah. Let's talk about the third plank, the value add that you're trying to offer and show travel advisors what they can offer in terms of value add for their customers.
We've just experienced much of that just this past few days. A private tour of Wedgwood and a private tour of the treasure-filled Chatsworth House. The head chef at the cookery school gave us the demonstration at the Grand Hotel. The head gardener took us around Benningborough Hall. The assistant, the vice president of the Yorkshire Stately Homes and Gardens group took us around Newby Hall and described...
It was amazing, and in fact it was actually just before a big weekend that we weren't supposed to know about, I think, that he showed us, and all the tables were set out. It was amazing.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to... He was very worried. We might have taken photographs of some of the people whose names were at the places, so anyway, we didn't do that. But we got to Liverpool, the same kind of thing. Rogue Best. I mean, he's a wonderfully eccentric...
Who is the brother of Pete Best, the original drummer of the Beatles, right?
But his tour of his own private collection of Beatles memorabilia was very special. And those sorts of experiences we've just enjoyed for the past 2 or 3 days, but we can find those in the southeast of England, we can find them in the southwest of England, they're all over the country. All people need to do is ask, if you like, and those sorts of things can be delivered.
Anything else you'd like to tell travel advisors out there? I mean, I hope you do another 100 more columns or more. Right? Let's see what, we're going to, I know you've got a lot of ideas of other columns and other ideas. We're going to focus more on destinations and some other things. You've done some sort of drilling down into certain destinations. And then, of course, we'll hear more about all the wonderful gardens and music and churches and everything else around England, too, right?
Well, they're breaking loose all the time. The Downton Abbey movie is out, so suddenly there's a rekindling of interest. So go to see Highclere Castle, where it was filmed, and locations which were used in the filming. Doc Martin is a good reason for going down to Cornwall. It's a long way to go, so spend 3 or 4 days down there. In fact, I'd recommend 4 or 5 days. There's so much to see and do. And it's odd little bits that pop up into conversation over dinner a couple of nights ago. Somebody we were with was talking about they're going to create a globe, like the Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London, to the east of Liverpool in the next 2 years. Now, it's little gems like that which keep on popping up, which sound fine, but I always try and put things over, and that's really, I'd love to do another 100. I'd like to live that long and do another 100.
Well, that's only a few years away, so don't worry about it. We'll get you there.
We'll get me there. But there's so much out there which I think will not only amuse and entertain people, but it will also add extra value, extra profits to the travel agents. And for anybody who is wondering how to put this all together, I suppose my final point would be that I've been doing this for nearly 40 years. I started doing this in 1980. So there's a fund of knowledge, experience, a vast network of connections, some of which you've met this week, who are here ready to make some sense of it all. So My expertise really is, it's not just a case of writing things down and making people excited and inspired and informed, but it's also delivering that, and that is where my real skill lies.
Well, if there's a gardener in England that doesn't know Paul, or a leader of a church, or a great museum, a great house, a stately home, I'd be really surprised that they don't know you.
Well, they're all there, and it really is the travel. What's exciting about this is the travel advisor has got access to people that want to experience this kind of thing, and it's all very well selling off a brochure or selling off a website, but if they really want to deliver something special for a very special client or a small group of people, and I'm not talking busloads, we're talking 10 or 12 people who don't actually want to travel in a bus with 40 other people, then that is the sort of experience that can be given. It takes a little while to develop it, and sometimes there's a bit of a sharp intake of breath because of the cost. But if they've ascertained the target audience correctly, they'll pay for that kind of experience because it's going to be in a league of its own.
And indeed, experience is where it's at on all levels of travel now. And well, Paul, first of all, thank you very much for setting up this trip. Once again, it was an amazing trip. We've done a trip like this before, but this was equally amazing, if not more so. I enjoyed it immensely. And thank you very much for writing for us at Insider Travel Report, really very regularly every week, and telling us all about the wonderful opportunities and wonderful attractions that Britain has to offer.
It's a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.